Thank you all very much for coming. It's a delight already to see some very familiar faces here. This is our fourth Buttonwood Gathering, our attempt to bring together the leaders in finance, economics, business, academia, and indeed government to debate the future of finance. It's also our second year in this wonderful building, this wonderful museum. And to that end, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce on the director of the National Museum of the American Indian, John Hayworth, to say a few words, and then I'll come back and do a fuller introduction. John.
Thank you so much, John. On behalf of the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian, I am delighted to welcome all of you to Lower Manhattan for this important Buttonwood Gathering. I read The Economist every week, and I'm pleased about your coverage of issues important to Native Americans and indigenous peoples throughout the world. Upstairs in our permanent gallery in the museum, there's an extraordinary exhibition, Infinity of Nations, which opened to critical acclaim far and wide. There are glorious artifacts, hundreds of them, from our permanent collections from South, Central, and North America, from Patagonia to the Arctic. We chose the title Infinity of Nations to express the rich diversity of Native communities throughout this hemisphere. And contrary to the popular notion, the Americas were not an empty wilderness when Europeans first came here. Certainly, the ideas of trade and commerce are at the center of this discourse. What a setting for your gathering as you consider economic challenges, political and international ramifications within the context of sustainability, environmental stewardship, economic development, and how all this plays out in all of our lives. The building we're in, the U.S. Customs House, opened in 1907 for the Custom Agency, and it's considered to be one of the most significant buildings in our country. In fact, as a federal building, it is considered the fourth most important building after the White House, the Capitol, and the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. The plaza in front of this building was an Algonquin trade area, and the waterways and major roads, including Lower Broadway, were major trade routes for the first inhabitants of this area. This area continues to be one of the most significant financial centers of the globe, so it's fitting that you're all here. Do take time to visit our exhibitions. There's Circle of Dance, there's a terrific music exhibition, and of course, Infinity of Nations. Have a great meeting and welcome to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would re-emphasize what he said about it being such a fantastic museum. As I said, this is our fourth Buttonwood Gathering, and it has been quite a year since we were here last year. I suspect back in those distant days of October 2011, you could well have solved the euro crisis for several $100 billion rather than the trillion or so it might well take now. And I'm delighted that this time we've managed to assemble such an impressive group of thinkers and actors to examine the changes in finance that have happened since then. When I looked at the program this year, it struck me there was a slightly greater accent on three things. The first is practitioners. We've got an impressive array of policymakers and economists, some of them already in the green room. But this year, there are even more people, I think, who are willing to put their money where their mouth is. This year's Bagehot Lecture, for instance, which has been given by the likes of Larry Summers and Mervyn King, is this year being given by Mohammed El-Erian. Some people say is the world's most powerful bond investor, but he is too modest to say that. I should add that Larry Summers is here in a different capacity. The second greater focus is on politics. The timing of the American election is both, I think, extremely good for us and a little bit awkward. And straight after this session, we jump into a panel with an economist from either side. We have Jared Bernstein from the Obama side and Glenn Hubbard from the Romney one. And I'm sure that the election will crop up at the panel discussion at dinner tonight. I will be watching and listening keenly, for The Economist has still not decided who to support this year, and we will make our endorsement next week. But it is worth noting that America is not the only country in transition. In China, Xi Jinping accedes to the throne in the next few weeks as well. In Europe, France has a new leader, and Mrs. Merkel faces an election next year. Politics, even more than normal, I think, could make a large difference to the world economy, and I'm glad to have it reflected here. The third factor, and we're all preoccupied by this, especially, in fact, the politicians, or at least they should be, is growth. After so many false dawns, America's economy seems to be showing some signs of recovery. Britain's, rather staggeringly, also has some signs of life, or at least we argue that. But China is slowing down, at least by its own standards, and the Eurozone seems to be heading back into recession. What strikes me, though, is that some of the old magic still seems to work. If you look at the effect of technology, you look at the effect of shale gas here, or even indeed 3D printing, which we had a cover on earlier, it's still possible that some of those good things that we remember from the old days come back to help. But there remains, as ever, I think, the danger that even while those magic double of globalization and technology continue to push the world forward, the danger is that the politicians will mess things up. And although Europe is the great example of this, it's patently not the only one. Just look at Congress and the fiscal cliff here. So those are the three things I picked out as I looked through the program this morning. But I think all the same, there is a lot to talk about. It's a real delight, as I said, that so many of you are back here again. I want to remind you of one thing and also stress this to anyone who's new. And it's a very simple one. This is your gathering. We were very adamant right from the beginning with Buttonwood that we didn't want this just to be another collection of finance CEOs giving lengthy speeches. So we brought in other people. We brought in people from non-financial industries, economists, even interested individuals, Economist readers, and we'll open it up to the world on our website. Buttonwood, as I say every year, is a conversation, or as we put it on the beginning of The Economist on our contents page, a severe contest. It involves a lot of our journalists, our Buttonwood columnist, Philip Coggan, who's a living manifestation of this event. You see, unlike other events, we have something which continues going throughout the entire year, or at least we hope it does. I hope the character of The Economist comes through in this. There is a lot of our journalists, more journalists than any other conference involved in it, because finance is crucial. We were set up to fight against the protectionist corn laws, but also, I think, to write about finance. Our very first articles were about the railway mania and all the things involved in this. This is our heartland. That is why Buttonwood is so useful for us. As well as performing here, we pick up a lot of interesting things. I would like to thank all our sponsors for their support for this event. Our founding sponsor, which remains RBC Capital Markets, our gold sponsor, which is PwC, and our silver sponsor, which is Pillsbury. I was going to say, please follow us on Twitter and tweet your comments and questions. The Twitter tag should be appearing behind me. We've been working with CNBC, our broadcast partner, to create a microsite for the event. Please do take the time to visit it. The videos from the event will be available there, and you can see the current Economist articles as well as the videos from Buttonwood 2011. Again, the details, I think, should be behind me, and they are. If you have any colleagues that would like to watch who aren't here, please let them know they can tune in via the live stream, again, up behind me. I'm going to finish by asking for the same two things that I asked for you last year. The first is feedback. Each year, I implore you to do this, and each year you come back with overwhelmingly positive response. But we are at heart at The Economist, we are masochists. We like criticism, and we want to give you a sense of what we're trying to build, and we want you to know, well, what we want to know is what you think. So please take the paper survey you were provided with this morning, or you can take the survey online. I think you can give feedback both on the whole day and even on individual sessions, possibly even this one. There will also be Economist team members present with iPads, eager to capture your live, detailed feedback. So please do give us examples or things that we're doing wrong and things that you want to improve. And that ties into the second thing, which is to do with what happens up here, which is participation. If you've been lousy at feedback, you have excelled in all the previous years at participation. If you have a view, please make it. Ask questions, expect answers. That is what we ask our journalists to do, and that is the same approach you should take. This is your severe contest, your gathering, as much as it is ours. I hope you enjoy it. Now I'm going to introduce my colleague, Greg Ip, to come to the stage and start the very first one. Thank you.